6:06, and welcome to the Coach's Corner, the Quit Talk Coach's Corner, now in its 10th year, with Coach John Messina and Fred Almeida.
Greg, thank you very much. I got my good friend here, Fred Almeida, the head guidance counselor at Centennial, longtime baseball and basketball coach here in St. Lucie County. Fred, thank you for coming here tonight.
Listen, there's no better thing to do in the fall, talk college and high school football, just like we do sitting around the backyard, so can't be any better than that.
Or at lunch duty.
Or at lunch duty, that's
duty.
right.
Lunch duty.
Right now we got Mike Thomas on the phone. And Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I don't know much, but I'm pretty sure I'm a better quarterback than Kay Cutler.
What's your salary, Mike? Are you making as much money as him, though? That's the key right there.
You know what? I'm willing to let the Bears find out for just one game check all year long.
Wow. Mike, I know you got a short time tonight, and I really appreciate you calling in all the time. Let's go over some of the games, the high school games that are being played this week, and give me your opinion of them.
Okay. Well, I guess we could start with the Centennial and Martin County game, which we're going to be simulcasting on both stations. And I don't know really what more there is to say about Martin County's offense. They're very impressive. They had a tough task last week against Treasure Coast, and I think we saw their quarterback, Austin Kirkendall, grow up a little bit and really struggle early in that game, and then found his rhythm and was able to make the plays needed to win. I think they're going to be tough to stop the rest of the year.
And we saw, Treasure Coast kind of beat him up in the first half, and you made a great observation on the year saying that, Treasure Coast is getting to him and he's had a little bit of happy feet. But then that second half, he was looking at his second and third receivers, and he really did very, very well in the second half. And I thought Martin County's defense, which you always brag about, really stepped up in the second half.
Yeah, and they didn't look good at all in the first half, and they haven't looked good throughout much of the first couple of games of this year. And they really tightened down the hatches when you got down to the second half, and things were starting to get, into the crunch of the game, and they needed a couple of big stops. They were able to get it. It helps that the Treasure Coast is so one-dimensional. I think they threw, 4 passes in that game? Well, the first one was incomplete. You had 2 interceptions and a penalty called on Treasure Coast. So they don't like to pass the football, but they were playing the exact type of game that they wanted, which is in the lead and wanting to pound the ball down your throat. And even though they were able to do it through the first half, Martin County made the adjustments needed at halftime, and also really stepped up and made the plays in the second half when they needed to. So that's the sign of a good team. Now, can they make those steps forward? Hopefully, but we'll have to wait and see. It's definitely going to be tough. They are a very, very good team, and I know last week we were talking about the top 5 teams in the area, and I wasn't sure, does Martin County belong at 4, or does Treasure Coast belong at 4? I think it's very safe to say Martin County is very firmly rooted in that 4 spot until something maybe happens with Vero, Sebastian River, and Fort Pierce Central.
And I know, Fred, you had watched you had watched Centennial first game of the year against Melbourne, and I know it's kind of heavy hearts. We're saying they're kind of struggling this year a little bit, so they're going to have a tough task on Friday night.
Well, they had a bye week this week, so I know they're changing the offense up. One of the problems Centennial has, according to Coach Parker, is that we've had a lot of turnovers. I say we because I'm at the school, but Centennial's had a lot of turnovers early in the game, especially to put points on the board. So you're always playing from behind, and they'll again playing Martin County, which is a passing offense. I know Coach Chaney, who's the defensive coordinator, is going to look to put some pressure. As Mike said, though, Martin County's pretty good at what they do.
Yes.
So it's one of those things. If turnovers are there early and Martin County strikes early, then you start going down that slope where things could go wrong fast. So, but I know Coach Parker had a bye week, and, they had the kids in all week. On the bye week, they're working hard now. So I'm hoping that, they can come up with a plan to, if not beat them, slow them down to make it a competitive game. And Centennial's looking forward to a couple district games in the next couple weeks.
Right.
So they got to start turning things around.
Yeah, their schedule gets really tough. Next game is probably going to be extremely competitive, and it's teams that I have seen, once or twice this year already. You have Fort Pierce Westwood playing host at Treasure Coast, and that's going to be I think the ball's going to be on the ground a lot, Mike, and I don't mean fumbles. I mean running. What do you think about that?
Over under 5 passes in the game.
That's total, both teams, right?
Both teams. Yeah, and 5 of them will be from Westwood. I think this one will be close for a half, and then I think Treasure Coast will probably be able to grind it out. You know, they've got such a good defense. They're going to take away and make Westwood one-dimensional. And Westwood has some athletes. If they can break a couple of plays and get an early lead, I think that's going to be the key for any team playing Treasure Coast is put points on the board early and take Treasure Coast out of their game. I don't know if Westwood has it in them to do it. We'll have to see.
Right. And then the next game, Fred, we got Port St. Lucie at Merritt Island, and I don't know who made up Port St. Lucie's schedule.
Oh, that sounds like a bye to me.
But yeah.
Oh, man. Wait a minute. Vero?
And then Merritt Island.
And Merritt Island back-to-back.
And both away.
Oh.
And I really feel bad for my buddy, Coach Chris Den over there. Merritt Island's going to be a tough place. It's a tough place to play,
Well, the
believe
thing
me.
is, first of all, the travel is tough.
Yeah.
It's not an easy ride up to Merritt Island. The fans are great. They've got a football tradition.
Yeah.
But I'll give Coach Dent some props here. You know, he has them kind of going in the right direction, if you want to say that. They're disciplined on offense, defense. They get the most out of their kids. So, do I think they can win? I don't know. But being competitive, it gives them momentum, gives them confidence. So I think they're headed in the right direction. But back to back, that's a tough schedule.
And they'll start their district schedule after that. They're only in a 3-team district with Suncoast and Fort Pierce Westwood. So these teams that they're playing now, I mean, it's really going to make them or break them. If nobody gets hurt, they'll be in good shape going into the next round.
Even if they lose at Merritt Island, I mean, can Coach Dent turn that around for his district and say, hey, look, guys, you played among the best in the state. I mean, can he do that?
That's what you're going to have to do. Yeah. I mean, you're really going to have to do on that.
You know, a lot of that's coaching. That's confidence in your players and them knowing it. Even if you get beat, hey, we hung in there with a great team. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate coaching when you're going into a Lions den like that, but you still come out with positive, even though you might have lost the game.
Mike, I'm going to skip down to a game that I know you saw Palm Beach Lakes already, and they're going to be at Vero Beach. What do you think about that?
I think Vero Beach is going to win pretty good. Palm Beach Lakes is a decent team. I didn't think they were necessarily a great team. There was a lot of confusion the night that they played South Fork. They had their backup quarterback going, who had some really, really good plays and some really, really bad plays. And they've got a 3-star wide receiver that a lot of people think is going to be going to play football at Kentucky next year, but he barely saw the field against South Fork. I don't know if there were disciplinary reasons for that from the coaching staff or if it was just the game plan, but I'm not sold on Palm Beach Lakes. They got the win over South Fork. I think a lot of that had to do with South Fork taking themselves out of the game and trying to really switch some things up and move their running backs out, and it really threw their offense off. Now, we saw what they were looking for from South Fork this past week. They had Stanley Spence, one of those running backs that they were moving all over the field against Palm Beach Lakes and couldn't get anything going. He certainly got it going with 4 touchdown catches this past week against Suncoast. But we know now what the coaching staff at South Fork was trying to achieve, but maybe not the week to debut it against a good but not great team in Palm Beach Lakes.
And playing at Vero, I mean, with a sellout crowd and the big jumbotron up there, I mean, the advantage is definitely Vero.
You try to keep it within 20.
Yes, okay. And then the last game, and Greg, you could chirp in on this because you saw Fort Pierce Central play. I don't know anything about Wellington, but I know Central is getting better and better each week. I think, Greg, the first half that we saw them against Westwood, they were a little bit shaky, but then the second half, they really took off and played some great football. Second quarter.
Yeah,
that's true.
No, and actually, they did look like a totally different team in the second half when they came out of the field. And then you think, okay, it's Fort Pierce Central. They're back, But, yeah, I'd be very anxious to see that game.
And they have a new coach, a whole new coaching staff. So, Fred, that takes a little bit of time to adjust.
Yeah,
in there.
especially they have some holdover coaches that were under the last regime, and then you bring the new coach in from St. Aquinas. They got to mesh a little bit. Don't count Wellington short. Wellington has a couple kids playing in Division I right now. One playing for University of Miami. A kid named Richards that had 145 yards last week against App State. He's from Wellington, and they have a couple D1 players on that team. So they're going to have some talent. So don't cut them short. With all the talent Central has.
Well, Mike, I know you got to run, and I really appreciate you calling in, and I wish you have a good game. Fred's going to be working with you on Friday night when Centennial plays at Martin County. But thanks again, Mike.
No problem. And before I go, did anybody there have a good recipe for crow? Because I was saying that Central was going to be having a down year this year. I need to eat some crow.
Well, we still got a long way to go, but I think the Central, Treasure Coast, and Vero games are going to be terrific coming down the road. So, okay, Mike, take care then.
Have a good one, guys.
Actually, I do have that recipe. It's with Parmesan. You'll love it. We'll see you, Mike. Mike Thomas, who's going to be working the game with Fred, and that's going to be a simulcast on both WPSL and WSTU.
Fred, another thing that you and I have been talking about, we found a website on the internet called alazindex.com. And doing a little research on it, this thing has been going on for 25, 30 years. And they actually do high school in Florida and college football, and they rank the teams. It's a mathematical formula. Obviously, the guy has nothing else to do, but besides
Now, I don't know if Laz is working for Wall Street, but he's got a formula that we can't figure out.
We can't figure out, but he was 96% accurate during the Florida high school playoffs. Now,
Whoa.
he gives you a percentage.
How about Dennis Jacobs knows this guy? Yeah.
I think so. After this show, Dennis is giving him a call right now. Go over some of the things that you saw on the Laz Index.
Well, they rank. There's 560 teams in this state. Now, a lot of the teams at the bottom are little 1A teams.
Right.
But they rank number one, which is Booker T, and I forget another team from down south. Aquinas is in the top 10.
Now, before you go on, you know what happened to Booker T?
Right,
They lost.
Yeah,
They lost
to Jackson.
They
right.
lost to Miami
Right.
Jackson, who has that young lady coaching from South Beach Towing, and your buddy Luther Campbell.
Luther Campbell's the D
But
coordinator.
then they go out and beat Booker T, who had just beat St. Thomas, and then Cardinal Gibbons, of all people, go out and beat Jackson by 30 points. So you figure that out there.
What's nice about it is next year there might not be runner-ups going to the
Okay.
FHSA playoffs.
We're going to get
So
into
he
that.
ranks all 100
Right.
or all 560 teams. So to give you an example, Vero's in the 70s.
Okay.
You have Martin County and South Fork in the mid 100s.
Right.
You have Port St. Lucie and Centennial in the 400s.
Okay.
So it just gives you an idea. I guess if you were looking at unlimited districts and unlimited classifications, where they would fall.
Where does he rank Vero?
Vero is 76 on the last poll, and Fort Pierce Central is 78.
Now that sounds pretty high, but you got to remember 8 classes and
560
560 teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, the thing about Vero, and they have played very well. I don't think they have beaten a really, really good team yet. Okay, it's coming down. Now, one of the things that the FHSAA is talking about is eliminating the district runner-ups for next year. And one of the reasons, and it's close to home here, we had 1 year Treasure Coast not making the playoffs, winning 7 out of 9 games. So, because they lost their 2 district games. So next year that'll be out. They'll be taking the best 32 teams in certain areas.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you an example. Like this year, Martin County's districts. Martin County's on this LAS index is 130.
Okay.
South Fork is 145, and Viera is 19 in the state. So you got 3 quality teams, and then Melbourne's down further than that. But let's assume we have this next year. The top 3 teams there
Right.
might have enough points to go into the state playoffs.
To go. And then they have just done something similar to that in New Jersey, where they restructured the whole state association. And one thing they did was kind of controversial at first, that they separated the public and private schools in the big class division for football. Now, some of those private schools like Don Bosco and St. Joseph's
Oh,
have
yeah.
been traveling all over the country.
I was going to say, Don Bosco was like, they were playing games in San Francisco and Seattle.
Bergen Catholic. And in fact, somebody went to Ireland to play a game.
Yes, I saw that.
Somebody from Jersey went to Ireland to play a game. But again, this might be a formula, and whoever they put together with this committee to pick the teams next year, they're going to be taking the best 32. And when I talked to the FHSAA about this last May, they said one of the reasons they had about 9 or 10 2-7 teams or 1-9 teams that actually made the playoffs last year as runner-ups in 3-team districts, and they got beat like 60 points in the first round.
Yeah, and again, like Okeechobee, Jensen, Sebastian River in the same district for football.
Okay, now that's a great example
Yep.
because all 3 of those teams should win 7 or more games.
Exactly.
At it because they all play 10 games in their respective districts. So that means one of the teams with seven wins is not going to be going.
And that's 6A, so they'll break it up based on, your classification. But to me, it'll be the best teams go into the state playoffs.
And then they're going to seed you, whatever they do. They're not going to call it classifications. They're going to call it some kind of geographical areas. They're going to seed you 1 to 32. So right now, for example, say Vero and Central had great teams this year, and they get out. Well, they'll play the opposite districts, first and second place, in the first round.
Yeah.
But in the second round, they're playing each other. Under this new formula, they're going to seed you 1 to 32. So if you're the best 2 teams and you happen to come from the same district, you will not play each other unless you get to that round.
So is it like the NC2A seeding in a way?
Yeah, in a way,
where
and
like 1 play 16 and
Yes,
yeah.
And what they're going to do is, for the lower classifications, they're going to give them extra points for playing harder schools. So if you're a 2A team and you play a 8A team, you might lose. Well, you'll gain points even though you lost a game.
Okay, what happens to St. Lucie County schools because they only play 9 games?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I think that was brought up to them. I don't know their answer. I'll know it by the next show. But that's a great answer because that could hurt them.
That's a good question.
That's
I
a
haven't
good
heard
hurt
that
'em,
one yet,
That's a great question on it.
Are we the only county that is down to 9 games now?
For football, I think so. I haven't
Wow.
heard of it. And again, it was done because of a Title IX, budget cut issue years ago. We cut some of the other sports. So in order to equate it with Title IX, you had to cut football too.
Wow. All right. Well, that's segment 1. We're flying by. It's 24 minutes after 6 o'clock. Quit Talk Coach's Corner, brought to you by Dr. Barry Hummel and the whole gang at the Quit Talk Coach's Corner. Quit Talk Foundation of Martin County has been a sponsor of high school sports and the Coach's Corner for 10 years.
Habit is killing me, and I must confess, I need to quit. When I have tobacco in my life, give me freedom. Tobacco, get out of my life.
Tobacco companies target me, a kid. They target us saying we will be cool, but really it makes you a smelly fool.
Tobacco, bye, bye, bye.
A message of the Shared Services Network of Martin County and the Drug Free Action Alliance.
Drive a little, save a lot at Treasure Coast Toyota of Stewart, where customer satisfaction is our #1 goal.
Just heard great things about the product and the dealership, and 3 or 4 cars later, I've been coming here about 10 years now.
Well, I recommended everybody I know. I'm with the Knights of Columbus and Sons of Italy, and everybody asked me where should I buy it. I'd send them over here.
My family have purchased 12 cars from Treasure Coast Toyota over the past 15 years, and they've been good to us, and we hope they continue to be good to us and the community around us.
I really believe and sincerely think that this dealership, for me, now everyone's different, is the only place I would buy another car.
We invite you to experience the difference at Treasure Coast Toyota, 5101 Southeast Federal Highway, US 1 in Stewart, or visit us online at treasurecoasttoyotaofstewart.com.
Dear future users, here's a few things you'll need to know if you want to smoke and use tobacco all your life. Dear future users, cigarette smoking causes nearly 1 in 5 deaths, and you will surely be the next. Remember when you smoke, one day you'll have a stroke, along with yellow teeth, a wrinkly face, and heart disease. Lung cancer's such a threat, bronchitis, early death. Why choose to smoke? Why choose to smoke?
A message of the Shared Services Network of Martin County and the Drug Free Action Alliance.
You're listening to WSTU Stewart.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Welcome back to the Quit Talk Coach's Corner with Coach John Messina and Coach Fred Almeida.
Well, welcome back to the Coach's Corner. And Fred, we're going to talk to a topic that's very, very close to our heart. And Coach Jamie Szyminski, our baseball coach at Centennial, was going to be here tonight, but he had to finish up a class. And for many, many years, we have always talked college football. And the question is, why do we love it so much? We're baseball guys, basketball guys, but what is the difference? I mean, I watched every college football game on Saturday. Can't say this too loud, even though I had a baptism going on, but I was peeking on my phone. But then when I got to the pro games on Sunday, I watched maybe one and a half. What is the difference?
Here's what I think, and I love college football more than anything. Saturdays are for football, and that's college football. Been like that for years. Is that when you watch it on TV, it's like, I know in the cities people have an attraction. I'm from Pittsburgh. People have attraction to Steelers. They move out of the city. They love the Steelers. But it's for college. It's something that's inside you that's even over and above your city attraction. Right. So, again, if you like Florida State, you like Florida, you really love the school, and you love everything around it. And I think even if you didn't go to the school, you pick a team or you know somebody that went there, and it's something that over years really just gets into your blood.
And it's getting bigger and bigger. I remember 1987, way back when, Chris Fowler came down to do a story on Alex Fernandez when I was coaching at Miami Pace. And he had a show called Scholastic Sports Academy.
Oh, yeah. I remember it well.
And we went out to eat afterwards, and he says he took a phone call. And back then, he had to go to a payphone and make the call back. And he says, geez, I just got this great job. It's called Game Day. And he says, geez, 1 week I'm going to be in Ann Arbor. Next week I'm going to be in South Bend. Next week I'm going to be in Los Angeles. Next week I'm going to be in Gainesville. What a great show. And how many years later has this evolved that it's like a cult following? I mean, you know, some of these times when they're doing a West Coast game, they're doing Game Day at 6 in the morning.
Oh, sure.
And it's packed on that. But it has really expanded. It is really, like you said, some of these colleges, that's the only thing that's in these towns.
Well, again, you got more college teams. You know, there's 128 Division I teams, right. I think. So you have more across the country. But I think the excitement that ESPN bought in years ago, and you know this better than anybody, Greg, they hit a nerve with America, and it was a void. And this college football with Feinbaum and what have you has taken off immensely. All my friends, we all just wait for Saturdays, and even some Thursday nights, Friday night games. And we all love high school football, but let me tell you, you hurry up home from high school to see who's on Friday night college sometimes.
You know, with the first 2 weekends that we've had in college football, you look at the NFL game on Sunday, it's dull.
I was going to use that word. You're right.
You know,
You're right.
Even in Seattle, when the Dolphins were out there, it's like those crowds that are supposedly the noisiest in the NFL didn't come close to college.
They didn't come close.
It was wild. You know, of course, the first 2 weeks have been dream weeks. I mean, if you're a television executive, my God, you're going crazy.
And like Fred said, you know, the first thing I do is the beginning of the week when the programs come up on my DirecTV guide. I say, well, which one am I going to watch? Which one am I going to tape? Which one am I going to miss, you know?
Well, again, there's so many channels with the cable that everybody's like myself. Whether you're here, I like West Coast games. You know, I'll stay up 11 o'clock at night just to watch what happens. I like the excitement. I've visited some of those schools out the West Coast. I'm from the Northeast, and here down in Florida, I've been to all the events down here. And everything's different. You know, everybody has a little something different that you got to watch because it's tradition. It's just a great atmosphere.
In a way, you know, as wonderful as it was to cover the Rose Bowl every year and stuff like that, it's not the same as the enthusiasm in the Midwest and the Southeast.
Yes.
It just isn't. I mean, it's, Carol went to school at Indiana. And, you think about the Hoosiers is the only thing in Bloomington. And the university, that's it.
Well, look at Gainesville. What else is in Gainesville? What else is in South Bend, right?
And again, if you take Gainesville as an example, you have Jacksonville to the north, and you have Tampa Bay, as two pro teams. Right. And I can tell you, everybody at those two pro games are talking about what the Gators did the night before.
That's right.
They're kind of all talking about it at one point. Even here, like Miami, the Dolphins are floundering. They're talking about Miami Hurricanes. So, again, your college hits a nerve that I think the pros miss. A lot of you either love it or you hate it. I don't know many people that hate college football.
No, and then remember, we're auditioning for the substitutes for the BCS committee. Just in case somebody gets sick again and everything. Okay, Fred, let's go into a few things, and Greg, you chime in here too, please. Biggest surprise so far in college football? Who do you think?
Team?
Yes.
I'll tell you right now. If you'd had to play one half, number one team in the country is Mississippi, so they should have just quit while they were ahead. If you're looking at a surprise, that would be the surprise. How do you blow? And I'm guessing this is negative on their part, but how do you blow two 21-point leads, although you're losing to two teams that were in the top five? Okay. So to me, that's surprising that they blew the leads, not that they lost. So if you're looking across the board, that to me is a huge surprise. You not only did it once, you did it twice.
Now I'm going to give you a surprise that you never thought of. From West Point Army, 3-0. They only won 2 games last year, 1 game the year already. They're 3-0. They got a favorable schedule that they can win 7-8 games this year. And maybe after 13 years of losing to Navy, that game could be really terrific.
Well, you say that, and our LAS index has them 17 in the country. The LAS index for college.
Army?
Army 17 in the country.
Really?
All those nice things I said about Laz, I'm going to take most of them back.
So whoever Laz is out there, you got Army 17. I don't want to mention where you got some of the other teams, but Army 17 in the country on their index.
Laz's father served in the military. I would think so.
The biggest surprise to me has been Notre Dame. And actually, Notre Dame and USC are 1 and 1A on major disciplines.
I think USC, not that they lost, but the way they lost.
Yeah.
Okay, you lose to Alabama, you lose to Stanford. You were never in any of those games. How about Oklahoma? Now, they played 2 good games, 2 tough teams, but they lost to Houston. Yeah. Right? They lost to Ohio State, and they're out.
Yeah.
Right? Notre Dame's out.
Well, I think one of the problems we have, and I heard somebody say this the other day, they would like the rankings to come out October 1. Because we're saying Oklahoma, we're saying Notre Dame, maybe they're just not as good as they were in the past, because they kind of preseason, nobody really expects it.
Sure.
So I know they do the rankings because everybody wants to watch number 1 and 3 instead of 2 teams playing, even though they might be Alabama and Florida State or something of that nature. But maybe the rankings are wrong. I mean, I'm with Greg. Notre Dame, not that they are a disappointment, but you think they should have had, the Texas game.
All right.
And, they're sitting there with 2 losses.
Well, if they run the table, any chance?
No, they're done.
They're done.
Oklahoma's done. Notre Dame's done.
Because their loss to Texas does not look that good, since Texas went out and lost to Cal, who lost to San Diego State. And that's some of the things you got to do. Oklahoma.
Hey, my Aztecs won.
Your Aztecs are not bad. Your Aztecs might run.
Wait,
here we go.
Here we go. The
last index got the Aztecs at 20.
Wow.
And they had, on ESPN today, they had the best chance of going undefeated with San Diego. They think they got one more tough game. I think they travel to Northern Illinois, which is not bad. Now, here's a question for you guys. You take North Dakota State, okay? Obviously,
I love those guys. I've covered them up there, right? Yeah.
The Bison.
The Bisons, yeah.
If you don't know anything about their program, they won the Division II title 5 years in a row. Now, people can't, catch a ball 5 times in a row, and they won the Division II title. Their number 1 quarterback last year is leading the Eagles, Carson Wentz, to 2 wins already. They play in a dome, a 20,000-seat dome, that is supposed to be the loudest arena in America.
It was louder than the old Seattle Dome.
And louder than the old Metrodome on that, too. Now, think of them going into Iowa, playing an Iowa team. Now, their first 2 games, They won in overtime and double overtime, North Dakota State. They beat Eastern Washington. Everybody says, well, that's another team. Well, Eastern Washington went out and beat Washington State.
No, they're a tough school.
Now, you hear what we're
Cheney,
talking about.
Washington.
We started off, why do we love college football? We now are talking about Division II teams beating major Division Ones.
Major Division Ones.
Miami played App State, which everybody thought was going to be a loss, but still they played them. It's intriguing that they're playing them. So that's what's,
and it's intriguing that they're playing them there, Fred.
Well, and did you? I mean, when ESPN was getting the shots of Boone, and you start looking around, that was the biggest sporting event in the history of that part of North Carolina.
Yes.
And that's what makes college football great, because the people in Boone, North Carolina, for the rest of their lives, will always say they were at the game, all 150,000 of them. Although there was probably maybe 35 in the stands. But that's a big thing in Boone, just like North Dakota State. Going into Iowa, all the people that went to that game, all 50,000 of those people went, they're going to say that for the rest of their life. And that doesn't happen in the pros.
No. And I thought it was nice. Apparently U of M helped with defray some of the costs of the extra seats.
Yes.
So I mean, that's a 25,000 seat stadium. They had 35 and change, that were on the mountaintops all around.
And it shows something about Miami, because a lot of schools would not do that.
No.
I mean, think of North Dakota State. They went in there, they beat the 13th ranked team in the nation, who was undefeated for the first 11 games or 12 games last year, Fred.
Yeah.
And they collected $750,000 too and went home. So, I mean, why would you schedule them? I mean, if you're going to schedule them, you're taking a big chance. You're taking a real big chance on that.
Well, somebody backed out at the last minute on Miami. I think that's why, because they didn't get
there
was no money involved. I mean, they went up there
and nobody would schedule Miami.
Exactly.
That was the problem.
And then Miami said, look, we'll go there. You come down here. I think they come down here in 2021. But that was the reasoning behind that. But that's great that they played them.
I didn't know we're doing a North Dakota State show, but I got another question. Okay. All right. Remember, we're not talking about Texas and USC now. You're right. We're talking about North Dakota State. Why wouldn't they go Division I, Fred?
Well, App State went Division I. They won the what they call 1AA then 3 years in a row. It had a great program, and the school makes so much more, has more visibility by going Division I, and they're on TV more. And it's more for the community, like scheduling teams like Miami there, and they felt it was in their benefit. I guess North Dakota State feels they find their niche, and that's where they want to be.
But suppose they win again. That's 6 in a row.
Makes no difference.
It makes no
well, I think that's the niche that they have there.
They know what they are. And they're happy where they are.
Well, I'm applying for the AD's job because I got a plan here. Put me in there, and I'm going to apply to go into the Big 12, which is not really 12 teams. We're going to get to that.
I want to see you last a couple days up there in the winter.
Well, not me, but say they go in a Big 12. That's a decent team. If I'm the Big 12 opponents, I'm saying to myself, you know what? They're not going to be great. They're not going to win the Big 12 because they can't put a performance on that like week after week, but they're going to be representative. But wouldn't that be a drawing area? If I'm them, the recruiting going into the Big 12 would be unbelievable.
The only thing I could say is, like, you look at App State, and they're in the Sun Belt, and they won the Sun Belt last year. Sun Belt's a nice conference.
Good conference,
right?
Yeah.
But to be in close to a Power 5, week in, week out, it takes a long time to get that. Georgia Southern's going through that too. Georgia Southern had great programs.
And they should have stayed where they were.
Well, again,
they should have.
Some of them, I think, are kicking themselves that maybe they made the wrong decision, And then, again, it's a financial thing, I guess, from the school.
And then look how many close games that the Power 5 teams escaped. It was Arizona over Texas El Paso the other night. The Roadrunners were almost beating them. Georgia was a 55-point favorite against Norfolk State, and they won by 3. Yeah. So obviously, Fred and I always talk about this in basketball, that you see, some of the not the mid-majors, but some even the lower, the Division II teams come up and they beat the Division I teams. But in football, this has not happened since the last 5 years. And why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think you got a couple things. They're letting those kids transfer those fifth year. And you see how many of those graduate kids make a difference, 1 or 2. Sometimes it's a quarterback. That's one factor. Plus, kids want to play early. So you see more transfers in the freshman year for really good players that go to good programs. and they want to be on the big stage. And so you're getting, I don't want to say parity among the Big Five or Power Five, but in a way, you don't have your core like you used to. Throw in a couple injuries, and boy, that's it.
It is interesting about kind of knowing what you are. When Carol and I were in television in Tucson back in the early 70s, Arizona State was king of the hill, in the WAC, in the original Western Athletic Conference. And, and Arizona was like nipping at their heels all the time. They moved to the Pac-10, have had zero success in football. Now, obviously, you look at Lute Olson in basketball. Arizona has done well. Look at baseball for both those schools. They're off the charts. But outside of that, in football, neither one has done anything in the Pac-12. Neither has Colorado. And now Utah, it's a whole different story.
Has done something.
Yeah,
basketball.
Yeah.
And in fact, didn't they have a good baseball team? Didn't he sneak in with baseball?
Baseball's becoming more popular across the country, and Utah has a very nice program.
Now here's a question for you. In our college football book that Fred and I went out in June and bought, okay, that we have nothing else to do. I have San Diego State's schedule in front of me. I know you're getting all excited there, Greg. Now, they were ranked 19 by this poll here, okay? They beat Cal. They do not have another Power 5 team on their schedule. If they go 12-0, what's the best they can do?
Well, they're not going to be in a major bowl.
Don't they get a bid if they're
no
the best?
No, I think the Power Fives are going to rule it in Notre Dame because even though they're not in the conference, they're there. But yeah, they won't. Houston, I think, was really smart going out and scheduling Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma, and they got Louisville coming up.
And they got Louisville coming up. So Oklahoma, you can't argue with some of the teams on their schedule what Houston's done. But I think somebody like San Diego State, first of all, they're not looking for one-year wonders. No offense, Greg, but Houston's done it over a couple years, and then last year they drilled Florida State in the bowl. So everybody's kind of like saying, I know that's a bowl game, but look at the score. So you get a little credibility, so I think that helps over time. But you do have to play your cards right, and you pretty much have to run the table.
Yeah, and really, San Diego State hasn't had anything since Don Coryell left. I mean,
now you're going way back.
That's when we were there.
Now, which school, let me ask you guys a question. I know you know the answer. Which school, who has not been a Power 5 conference, was the forerunner of all this?
Boise State.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. In my poll,
here we go.
Is 16 right above Army.
Wow.
So we don't know who Laz is, but we're talking about teams that he has in the top 20.
So I got to go home tonight, find the DirecTV guide, and I got to find out where Army's playing because that's my new, that's my team. All right, we're going to try to go through some of the conferences if we got real quick. Now, Fred, you got a time limit when we talk about the Canes, okay? Greg, you got a little buzzer to cut him off because he'll start talking about Miami all night. Let's go to the ACC first. I think it's down to 4 teams. People on TV are saying it's down to 3. You have 3 of the better teams on one side. We had I don't know what else you could say, but a massacre. Louisville beating Florida State. I still can't get over that score. So now, not this week, but next week, you got Louisville going to Clemson, okay? If Clemson beats Louisville, okay? Florida State gets Clemson in Tallahassee, correct?
Yes,
Florida State wins that one. We have a 3-way tie on one side of the ACC.
Well, again, this is what makes college football great. Thursday night this week, Georgia Tech plays Clemson. They play at Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech's 3-0. So I know we're going 2 weeks down the road, but that's what makes college football great. You got to get through this week, and then you got your big gauntlet next or 10 days from now. But getting back to your question, to me, I think it's going to play itself out when they all knock each other off, and then somebody's going to lose to somebody that they're not expecting to do.
It's funny, you talk about Georgia Tech, egghead school, same as Stanford. These guys are brilliant, and they're 3-0.
Yeah.
And they play a style that if you're not ready for it and you make a couple turnovers, meaning Georgia Tech, they keep the ball, you get frustrated, you look up and you go, there's 5 minutes to go and we're losing by 8. How'd that happen? And talking what Greg's saying on Stanford, we saw them this Saturday. They have their niche. They run their system. McCafferty's great, but still, again, they have their niche. What they do, they don't make mistakes.
Okay.
They're smart. They don't try and do too much.
Very few penalties.
Now, on the other side of the ACC, what do you think the Canes' chances are? Yeah, 25 words or less now.
Well, going by to the Canes, they got to play Georgia Tech the following week, so
Okay.
you'll learn more. I think the Canes right now are young, and they don't have enough depth. I think they'll have two losses, but look in the future. Mark Rick's building a power.
Okay.
Talk to me in 2 years.
Talk to you in 2 years.
As
All
my
right.
wife says, always next year.
Trying to say recruiting? Oh.
Forever young.
Forever young.
As our
Yeah,
football
that's it.
coach Jim O'Neill used to
That's
say.
all I'm
all
gonna
the time.
say.
Okay, now we go to the Big Ten. Now my question is, there's more than 10 teams. Why don't they change the name? Okay, that's my big point here. There's 14, right?
It's marketing. It's marketing.
It's the Big Ten. All right, we're going to get to 20 teams. The Big Ten looks like divided in East and West. It seems like one side is top heavy. You got Ohio State, you got Michigan, you got Michigan State on one side. You got Wisconsin, you got Iowa, and here's another surprise outside of my Army team is Nebraska on the other side. Now Iowa, I don't care who they are. Since they lost to North Dakota State, they ain't getting in anywhere unless they win their conference all the way through.
They could be the one that shakes up the tree. You know what I mean? Because, again, that one loss is really going to hurt them. But one of the things in the Big Ten that I always look at, weather dictates a lot of the games.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they get into late October, into November, and you're playing a bad weather game, which happens up there a lot other than Minnesota, what happens is the weather sometimes dictates who wins and loses. So be aware of that. But Ohio State looked awful good Saturday. So I would say, just personally, they right now would be the best team in the Big
Carol
Ten.
says I have to pick Indiana. So.
And what's
Basketball?
sport?
Who's-
Basketball. Don't start with football.
Bobby Knight is coming back.
Here's a question for you, okay? Hypothetically, since we're doing hypothetically, we could do whatever we want on the show anyhow, but hypothetically, Michigan, Ohio State run the table. One of them wins in overtime. Then they go into the Big Ten.
Now, do they play each other this year? Or no?
Yes, the last game of the year. Last game of the year.
Okay.
Okay. They go into the Big Ten championship, and remember, it's not the Big Ten. I want to harp on that. They go into the Big Ten championship, and they blow out. The winner blows out the team on the other side. If everybody else got one losses in the country, do you take two of those teams to go to the Final Four?
If they put 12 of us in a room, and you had that scenario, but you still had Stanford with one loss, Alabama out of the SEC undefeated or with one loss. You got an ACC team with undefeated or one loss. I'm only taking one of them.
You're only taking one of them.
If I'm in a room with 12 people across the country, and that scenario, I'm not taking two from the same conference. I don't know how close it is.
Paul Feinbaum, who we're trying to get on his show next week, I want you to understand that, who's on the SEC network and ESPN.
Good guy. He is a good guy, yeah.
The more I hear him, the better I like him. He came out with something today, and I think everybody fell off their chair, and they asked him, well, what is the toughest conference? And Paul is a die-hard SEC person. He says, without question right now, it's the Big Ten. Okay? The SEC has taken a hit. The Big 12, which is not 12, sorry, I just want to throw that in there, they're gone, right? You figure
I think they're gone, yeah.
You think they're gone. I mean, Texas's great win is just evaporated a week later, going out and losing to California, who's not even the upper echelon as a Pac-12. Okay.
Well, again, you got Houston sitting out there outside the Power Five.
Oh.
But they got to run a table.
But
beat
here's the
Louisville
thing with
and-
Houston. They might get a loss and say they beat Louisville at the end and then win their championship. They might have a shot at getting in.
I can't see that happening. The only thing that would happen is Notre Dame, who's not in the conference. If that happened to them, say they had one loss and something crazy, Notre Dame would get in.
So you don't.
Well,
think
they've already got two, so they're
Yeah,
done.
name recognition. That's what Notre
Sure.
Dame is.
They'll end up playing USC in some bowl game too.
They play them anyhow. So
Yeah.
So now let me get the scenario straight. Okay, Houston, say they lose to Memphis by a point in overtime, runs the table, beats Louisville, and I'm pretty sure that game's in Louisville. Okay, they beat Louisville and Louisville, who's undefeated at that time. Then they win their conference championship. So they're going to be 12-1 with one loss, but beat Louisville. And here's another thing: Houston's got to root for who? Oklahoma. Houston's got to root for Oklahoma to run the table. So think of if Louisville wins the ACC championship, Oklahoma wins the Big 12 championship. Houston's got one loss, but not to either one of them. Do they get in?
Again, it depends on what the SEC does, because again, they like the Power Fives.
Okay, but why is that, Fred? So you're telling me that they got to have Power Fives and they can't have 2 out of 1 conference.
Here's what you can have 2 out of 1 conference. It's like when LSU and Alabama a couple years ago, they were the best 2, and they ended up playing in a championship game. I think when you put 12 guys in a room, or 12 ladies and guys in a room, and they're deciding, there is a prejudice there, and they see the Power 5. And they might say, hey, this Houston team's great based on your scenario, but there's some bias there with the Power 5 teams.
And nobody sees them.
Correct. It's like in this room, if we have 12, what's in this room stays. And again, the national media can talk all they want. You can fight for your school. Again, that's what makes college football great. But I do think there's a bias for the Power 5 teams and Notre Dame when push comes to shove for the 4 on the play.
Do you think, in your wisdom, fellas, that we should expand and go to 8 teams?
See, I would like to see that. I wouldn't go any further.
8 would be great.
I think it would be amazing. Yeah. And you could do that.
You could do it. They said that expand it a week or 2. The only thing I think that they're afraid of, and again, this is the NCAA people, is that they're turning into basketball. You know how we look at basketball, and that's the great thing about basketball now, that you got 64 or 66 or whatever it is there. But I think football, they're saying, look, we're tradition. We had the 2, now we're going to 4. We might be dead by the time they go to 8. They just kind of stick to that tradition in football.
One of their arguments was the amount of games played, and then somebody came back and said, you know what, go look at how many are playing in the high school associations. In Florida, we play 16.
Well, the Division 2, don't they play about they play like 14?
Oh, yeah.
They have a 32-team playoff, so that's 4 more games plus 12.
But
that's
we
16.
have to protect the student athletes.
But those games are being played. Don't get me started. Those games are being played.
Now this year, those games are on a date that everybody will be watching them.
What, New Year's Eve? I wasn't watching.
Well, they this year they're making it more accommodating, so the ratings will be huge this year.
Okay, but the extra date that they would put in is when the kids are out of school. It would be in December. So what you would do is take that first round of bowl games and play it maybe Christmas weekend. Okay, the next one is New Year's Eve weekend, and then you have the finals 2 weeks here, or 1 week or 2 weeks after that.
Well, I think it's 2 weeks.
So you don't tell me you're taking the kids out of school.
Well, and some of the schools had protested because, their final exams.
But they would be done. No, they would be done because those kids. I was working on this already.
He's working on that. He wants to be athletic director at North Dakota State.
North Dakota State.
Have you ever been to North Dakota?
No, but
I haven't either. So maybe it's something to look at.
We're going to take a road trip this year.
No, I'll tell you, I have. You don't want it.
Listen, I would be lobbying to go into the Big 12. The Pac-12 wouldn't want me because we dominated, but I would lobby.
North Dakota State in the Big 12? No, it's not a big enough draw. They're now Houston. That's a whole different story.
Well, Houston is.
But
Houston will probably.
But here's my question for you: If I'm some of the members of the Big 12, I don't want Houston in there because they're going to beat me. Okay, and here's another thing. All right, now that just opened up my recruiting base. If I'm Oklahoma, do I want Houston recruiting in Oklahoma? No, I don't.
Well, they already do. So.
But now you're saying you could play equally. Okay? I mean, Tom Herman has done a tremendous job. Everybody sees that. I mean, it's one thing coaching on the field, which he's great, but the recruiting thing, I mean, their athletes, Fred, and we talked about this, were just as good as Oklahoma's.
Right. Well, that's for now. But, the way you recruit, you got to keep recruiting. You have to have tradition and keep going like that. Everything's about money in college football because it drives the other sports.
Even Notre Dame
is talking it drives the other sports.
Is talking about taking one of their home games out of South Bend. Now, this has really ticked off a lot of Notre Dame people, and moving into the Rose Bowl and or the Citrus Bowl and alternating. And why are they doing that?
Recruiting. Yeah. That's a great idea, by the way. That is a great idea.
Not if I live in South Bend.
What happens to the poor people of South Bend?
That's like Harbaugh. His idea was great. It made all the other coaches mad. But who's going to go to Michigan to see their campus when you can come to Florida, go to California, wherever.
Oh, I know.
And you can see the person recruiting you and his staff and doing all the crazy stuff. I thought it was genius, but everybody else is like, what's this guy doing?
Now, you notice we have been talking about North Dakota State, my new profession. I'm coming out of retirement. And we haven't talked about Alabama and the SEC
let's just stop on that. You think Alabama's going to lose a game? Lose a game?
No, I don't. I don't. I thought if they were going to lose, they had their shot.
Yeah.
They're going to get better. Lane Kiffin and Saban got something going. Whether they argue on the field or whether they don't argue on the field, Lane Kiffin was probably not a real good head coach, but there's nobody better as an offensive coordinator. And he coaches to the material that he has. Now, the only thing that I think can hurt him, and this is just me speaking by watching them, I think their quarterback's running so much he's going to get beat up. He ran 20-something times last week. And Alabama usually has a drop-back quarterback. Now they got a running quarterback, okay? The one thing about Nick Saban, I had the pleasure of meeting him a few years ago when he came down and recruited one of our players at Centennial. And he is so focused. He's just, he gets on their case after a win, probably more than he gets on their case after a loss, because the one thing he told Coach Parker and myself, after you win, those are teachable moments, not when you lose. When you win, there's teachable moments.
Interesting.
I don't think, they're going to have some tough games. A&M looks like they're decent. Our buddy over at Arkansas looks like they're decent. And you know what? A lot depends in the SEC, Fred, where the games are being played at, right? Do you agree with that?
It's just the idea. I watch all weekend, and Alabama, top to bottom, it has the best team. They have the best. They have a good kicker. They have special teams are outstanding. Defense is top of the notch. Like you said, offensively, get the kid so he doesn't get hurt, the quarterback, the herd. And I just think they're head over heels over everybody else. I'd be shocked if they lost a game.
And again, here's a game this week where Florida has beaten Tennessee 11 straight times. They're going into Tennessee in front of 106,000 people.
Rocky Top.
Okay?
Yep.
And they don't have the quarterback. They don't have their best receiver. If Butch Jones doesn't win this game, I think the people are going to be yelling out there. Right?
This is why you love college football. Because we're all going to watch it, whether you like Florida or not, whether you like Tennessee, to watch 105 at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday.
And what's another big one? They got Mississippi, or is it Mississippi State playing somebody that's
This
decent?
week's a little down. I hate to say it because last week was so exciting. But, yeah, there's a couple games like that are going to dictate where some teams are going to fall. But for right now, I'd say Alabama. Tide's rolling.
And then on the east side, Georgia,
you're going to find a lot this week. That's why the Florida-Tennessee game's huge.
John, where are my Aztecs this week?
Your Aztecs. I think they're at Northern Illinois. This was the other one.
Oh, they're up in DeKalb.
They said that this was going to be a tough one from them and everything. But
my Westwood One rep is the sideline reporter and is going to be the new play-by-play man up at Northern Illinois.
Yes, they are there at Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
They're 2-0, and this is the only other game that they thought was going to be tough. But I'd like to thank Fred for coming in. We are definitely going to bring you back.
We got to do this
anytime.
We're going to bring you back.
Very cool.
So you know what? We're going to bring you back first time the poll comes out, okay?
Oh, that's a good
That'll
idea.
be a great idea.
Yep.
And listen, do a good job for me at the game this week,
No problem.
okay?
I'll fill in for you.
Thank you for everybody else for listening to the show and another edition of the Coach's Corner.
So we have both Hey Coach from WLX TV and the Coach's Corner, the Quit Doc Coach's Corner on WPSL TV on YouTube. Check it out. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, WSTU Stuart, Florida. Enjoy high school football this Friday night on both WPSL and WSTU.